Hey folks, welcome back to my channel. Today's story is about OP, who made a shocking discovery when he found a letter in his wife's shoebox. The letter, written by the affair partner's wife, revealed that OP's wife had cheated on him. OP has since confronted his wife, and her life is now in shambles. In this video, we'll delve into the details of what happened. Some of you have asked how this all began, and I'll explain everything that led to this moment. Although this is not recent, the events began in July of last year. I am now removed from the situation, and I appreciate all the advice and encouragement I received. It all started going downhill in July 2020, after a great June. We had gone on a getaway with our son and his friend, had a good time together, and the intimacy was satisfying. However, in July, we began having small arguments over trivial matters. She showed no interest in intimacy, and although I was interested in her day, she would not reciprocate. She spent extended periods of time in the bathroom and took frequent baths. Yet she complained that we didn't spend enough time together. This continued throughout July. In August, the situation became more strained, and she attempted to act as if everything was okay. She showed me lingerie and said she was planning to give it to me for my birthday. However, on my birthday, she only bought me a couple of records, and nothing else. We both had long days at work and ended up cooking and relaxing together. I thought it was okay since it was a weekday, but even when she offered sex, she didn't seem fully present. In September, we had several significant arguments, and during one of them, she requested some time alone. I found this suspicious, and I was devastated as I felt our marriage was falling apart. Sadly, my intuition was correct. I left with our dogs and stayed with my brother and his family for the night. The next day, I returned home in the afternoon. Before I got there, she had mentioned that she wanted to go out with her friends, and I never stopped her from doing so. I arrived at around noon, and she didn't get home until 6 p.m. When I saw her, I expressed my happiness at seeing her. When I saw her, she murmured that the month had been terrible, and that week was even worse. She wasn't affectionate towards me, and instead she was being rude, snide, and downright cruel. I kept asking her to talk to me and tell me what was wrong. I knew something was off, and I just wanted us to work things out and be on good terms. One day, a close friend of mine saw me at work and expressed concern. I confided in him about how much I loved my wife. At that point, we had been together for 8.5 years and married for 1.5 years, but I didn't know what to do. My friend suggested marriage counseling, and he had been through something similar. Something similar happened to him. He suggested I read The 5 Love Languages and another book that I can't remember at the moment. As soon as I started reading, I realized that I had been prioritizing work over my relationship. My brother and I own a business together, and since COVID, we have been overwhelmed with work. Despite this, I never stopped trying to show my love for my wife through conversations and physical intimacy. However, on the same day I came home, she seemed distant. She was sick, so I took care of her. The next morning before she left for work, I calmly asked if we could talk. I shared with her what I had learned from the book I finished reading the night before. I confessed that I had been distracted and expressed my love for her. I suggested that we attend marriage counseling to work on our relationship because we both care about each other and our child. One of my words or phrases seemed to upset her, and she started crying, repeating her fear that I would come to despise her. After urging her to be honest, she eventually admitted to cheating on me over the past weekend when she claimed to be spending time with friends. I was in shock and disbelief. But despite this, I still loved my wife, my marriage, and our child. I foolishly reassured her that I could forgive her, but only if she was completely honest and open about everything. However, she immediately shut down and refused to give any names or details. All she revealed was that she had been emotionally involved with someone else since July, and it continued until the day in September when she cheated. How could I trust her after what she had done? The truth was, I couldn't. I expressed my frustration and disbelief, telling her that her actions had made a mockery of our marriage and the vows we had made. This conversation took place on a Thursday, and that evening, I tried to talk to her about what had happened, but she refused to engage and gave very little information. She even claimed that she never agreed to discuss it, despite telling her affair partner that she had told me about their affair. The next day, Friday, was no different. I felt nauseous, couldn't sleep, and was filled with a mix of anger and devastation. Finally, on Saturday, my brother, seeing how upset I was, advised me to stay home and confront the situation head-on. While I stayed home, my wife went to work out. I was left to deal with the aftermath of her confession, and I was a complete wreck, emotionally drained and lost. In my despair, I called my father, who had cheated on my mother in the past, but they were able to work through their issues and have been happily married for 38 years. I hoped he could give me some advice on what to do next. My father told me that cheating is not a mistake, but a deliberate choice. He encouraged me to give my wife an ultimatum and make it clear that her actions have consequences. I gave my wife an ultimatum and made it clear that she needed to choose whether or not she wanted to work on our marriage. He also suggested that her response would give me all the answers I needed. Despite feeling like a complete mess, I managed to gather myself together and focus on taking care of our home and our son. After she left for her workout, I headed down to our apartment gym and informed her that we needed to have a serious talk once she was finished. About half an hour later, she returned, and I calmly explained to her that she had to choose between her affair partner and our family and marriage. However, all I received was a response of "I don't know," and she asked for some time to think. I agreed to give her time, but only under the condition that she would neither contact nor meet with the other person. She accepted and went out for a 2-hour run, which I was able to track using an app. When she returned, she noticed that I had cleaned the apartment and broke down in tears. When I asked her what she had decided, she once again responded with, "I don't know." I pushed her for a definitive answer, and she finally admitted that the affair was over. Despite feeling heartbroken, I tried to remain composed and told her that I understood her decision. With tears streaming down my face, I hastily packed a duffel bag with some clothes and told her that I was leaving. She also broke down in tears as she realized that I was actually going through with it. Before leaving, I kissed my son and told him that I would be staying at his uncle's house for a while. He was too engrossed in his video games to fully understand what was going on, but I reassured him that everything would be okay. I informed my wife that I would be returning the next morning to collect the rest of my belongings, and then I left. The following morning, I arrived at our apartment at 6 o'clock. As soon as I arrived, I went straight to our bedroom and began filling garbage bags with all of my belongings from the bathroom and closet. My wife sat up in bed, tears streaming down her face, and asked me what I was doing. I explained to her that she had made her decision, and she broke down in sobs. Despite feeling heartbroken, I still loved my wife and wanted to fix things between us. I climbed into bed with her and held her close, kissing her for what felt like an eternity. I pleaded with her, telling her that things didn't have to be this way, but that she needed to be honest with me. However, she remained silent. I became extremely angry and shouted at her, expressing my frustration that all the effort I had put in was for nothing. I packed up my belongings and informed her that my father and brother were waiting for my call at a cafe just 5 minutes away, ready to help me move the heavy items. It was already 11 a.m. by this time, and I had already packed everything. When she asked what we would tell our son, I woke him up and gave him a vague excuse about miscommunication. There was a miscommunication between us. She then told me that she didn't want to see my family, but pleaded with me not to blame her, as she was feeling ashamed. She took our son out shopping. I noticed that he seemed upset and confused, so I called my dad and brother, and they came over to help me move out. We took my 3 TVs and all the electronics I had bought to make our home smart. I made sure to leave all of my son's belongings because I love him, and none of this was his fault. Before leaving, she texted me not to go and to wait for her and our son, so I stayed put. When she returned, I was shocked to find that the place looked like it had been robbed. She explained that our son had knocked over a display in a fit of anger and expressed his desire for us to still be a family. I gave her a look that conveyed my displeasure, And then I told her that I understood that our son wanted us to be a family, and that was what I wanted too. But what did she want? With a sigh, I said that there was no point in me staying if she wasn't willing to work on our relationship. I insisted that she tell her parents about our separation, because they would be upset if they found out from our son. The following week was the first week of October, and I tried to maintain a routine for our son. I made sure to take him to school and prepare his breakfast. But on some mornings when I had to report to work early, I also dropped him off at his grandparents' house. When her parents asked about our situation, I confided in them and explained that I wanted to work things out, but she was unable to provide any answers beyond, I don't know. Her father was upset and sympathetic towards me, as we had developed a close relationship and mutual respect. Meanwhile, she continued to text me, expressing her self-hatred and disbelief over her actions. However, she was still communicating with her affair partner. At one point, she even asked if we could reconcile, but I made it clear that if she wanted me back, she needed to take certain actions. One day during that week, I picked up my son from his practice and took him home. He wanted to show me something, and I was happy to spend time with him, so we hung out in his room for an hour. When I came out to the living room, I found her in a distraught state. She asked me to sit with her, and then she approached me and hugged me tightly. I almost gave in to the comfort of her embrace, but I stood up instead and told her that I couldn't continue if she was still involved with the other guy in any way. She claimed that she had ended things with the other guy, so I sat down and held her. We even shared a few kisses, and I caressed her, but then her phone rang with a distinct ringtone, and I could tell she was panicking. She told me that the other guy had been calling her all day since she ended things. I looked into her eyes and asked her to prove that she had indeed ended it. She began crying and refused to show me any proof. I reiterated that if she wanted me back, she knew what she needed to do. Throughout the week, I continued to try and maintain a routine for our son, taking him to school and preparing his breakfast. However, I also dropped him off at his grandparents' house on some mornings when I had to report to work early. When her parents asked about our situation, I confided in them and explained that I wanted to work things out, but she was unable to provide any answers beyond, I don't know. Her father was upset and sympathetic towards me, as we had developed a close relationship and mutual respect. Meanwhile, she continued to text me, expressing her self-hatred and disbelief over her actions. However, she was still communicating with her affair partner. At one point, she even asked if we could reconcile, but I made it clear that if she wanted me back, she needed to take certain actions. One day during that week, I picked up my son from his practice and took him home. He wanted to show me something, and I was happy to spend time with him, so we hung out in his room for an hour. When I came out to the living room, I found her in a distraught state. She told me that the other guy had been calling her all day since she ended things. I looked into her eyes and asked her to prove that she had indeed ended it. She began crying and refused to show me any proof. I reiterated that if she wanted me back, she knew what she needed to do. Throughout the week, I continued to try and maintain a routine for our son, taking him to school and preparing his breakfast. However, I also dropped him off at his grandparents' house on some mornings when I had to report to work early. When her parents asked about our situation, I confided in them and explained that I wanted to work things out, but she was unable to provide any answers beyond, I don't know. Her father was upset and sympathetic towards me, as we had developed a close relationship and mutual respect. Meanwhile, she continued to text me, expressing her self-hatred and disbelief over her actions. However, she was still communicating with her affair partner. At one point, she even asked if we could reconcile, but I made it clear that if she wanted me back, she needed to take certain actions. One day during that week, I picked up my son from his practice and took him home. He wanted to show me something, and I was happy to spend time with him, so we hung out in his room for an hour. When I came out to the living room, I found her in a distraught state. She asked me to sit with her, and then she approached me and hugged me tightly. I almost gave in to the comfort of her embrace, but I stood up instead and told her that I couldn't continue if she was still involved with the other guy in any way. She claimed that she had ended things with the other guy, so I sat down and held her. We even shared a few kisses, and I caressed her. But then her phone rang with a distinct ringtone, and I could tell she was panicking. She told me that the other guy had been calling her all day since she ended things. I looked into her eyes and asked her to prove that she had indeed ended it. She began crying and refused to show me any proof. I reiterated that if she wanted me back, she knew what she needed to do. Throughout the week, I continued to try and maintain a routine for our son, taking him to school and preparing his breakfast. However, I also dropped him off at his grandparents' house on some mornings when I had to report to work early. When her parents asked about our situation, I confided in them and explained that I wanted to work things out, but she was unable to provide any answers beyond, I don't know. Her father was upset and sympathetic towards me, as we had developed a close relationship and mutual respect. Meanwhile, she continued to text me, expressing her self-hatred and disbelief over her actions. However, she was still communicating with her affair partner. At one point, she even asked if we could reconcile, but I made it clear that if she wanted me back, she needed to take certain actions. One day, during that week, I picked up my son from his practice and took him home. He wanted to show me something, and I was happy to spend time with him, so we hung out in his room for an hour. When I came out to the living room, I found her in a distraught state. She asked me to sit with her, and then she approached me and hugged me tightly. I almost gave in to the comfort of her embrace, but I stood up instead and told her that I couldn't continue if she was still involved with the other guy in any way. She claimed that she had ended things with the other guy, so I sat down and held her. We even shared a few kisses and I caressed her, but then her phone rang with a distinct ringtone, and I could tell she was panicking. She told me that the other guy had been calling her all day since she ended things. I looked into her eyes and asked her to prove that she had indeed ended it. She began crying and refused to show me any proof. I continued to come back to take my son to school and even prepared meals for him to store in the fridge. She neglected to do laundry, and although I wanted to help, I refrained from doing it for her. However, I did take note of the situation. I discovered that my son's sheets were filthy and that he smelled bad from not showering. I had to scold my wife for not taking proper care of him. The following weekend, her friends invited her to go to the Renaissance Fair, and I was surprised by how well she pretended that everything was okay. She asked if I could watch our son for a few hours, and I agreed because I wanted to spend time with him. However, deep down I knew I wasn't truly ready for it. After work, I went to pick up my son from his friend's house, but to my surprise, 4 other boys jumped into my car as well. It seemed like a sleepover was taking place, and I found myself extremely angry. However, my anger wasn't directed towards him, but rather towards her. I called her and made it clear that if she didn't come back, I was gonna leave. Despite this, it took her 3 hours to return, and she was acting irritated about it. I was outraged when she had the nerve to claim that she shouldn't feel guilty for celebrating her birthday with her friends. I told her that she should feel remorseful due to the circumstances and that she had taken advantage of the situation. I made it clear that this behavior would not be tolerated in the future. She wept and exclaimed, "Am I only meant to be a mother?" I didn't respond, but inwardly I acknowledged that she had made this decision prior to my involvement. We conversed a bit more, and she even extended an invitation for me to sleep in the same bed and reconcile. However, I declined and left. My son appeared dejected. Despite the emotional toll and financial strain of staying 45 minutes away, I continued to travel back and forth. She had also been avoiding her parents, so they only knew what I had disclosed to them. It was the week of October 25th, which coincided with my ex's birthday. Our interactions had been awkward, and I found myself embarrassingly trying to win her back. On Monday, I sent her sweet video messages, but she seemed indifferent. In the morning, I took care of our son and dropped him off at school. As I had done in previous years, I started with a small gift and planned to gradually increase the grandeur. I found a lovely photo of the 3 of us taken at a pumpkin patch when we were first together, and I decided to use it as my starting point. As I was about to leave, an inexplicable urge prompted me to snoop around. I searched through her belongings and stumbled upon a new shoebox. Without thinking, I opened it and discovered a new vibrator, dildo, and butt plugs. Out of anger and betrayal, I discarded all of our previous toys before leaving. To my disgust, I noticed that she had even kept the packaging. The package bore the postmark of the day after I had left. The icing on the cake was the accompanying gift message with the name of the person responsible for this heinous act. While examining the shoebox, I came across a letter from a woman who shared the same last name as the person who sent the gift message of toys. Curiosity got the better of me, and I opened the letter to find a photo of a family. The picture included 2 young boys, an infant, a dog, and a man and woman. The letter informed my ex that she had destroyed her own marriage, and that the affair partner could keep her. The writer revealed that she had uncovered the infidelity due to the toys that the affair partner had gifted her. I took photos of the letter and the picture, and immediately went to my ex's parents to explain the situation. My ex's father offered me the same advice that you all had given me, to seek legal counsel, gather all necessary documentation, and file for divorce. I followed his advice and submitted the paperwork on the same day that I received it. However, for months, we continued to attend soccer games together and even shared a few intimate moments, though I refrained from having sex with her. One day during a soccer game, I noticed that she was not as invested in it as usual, so I prodded her until she confessed that she was seeing someone else. That week, I submitted all the remaining paperwork to finalize the divorce. Update: yesterday I had a lengthy conversation with my son. I hadn't received any significant updates from my son since his last birthday, and it has been bothering me. However, I understand how teenagers work, and I am certain that dealing with his mom's annoying boyfriend, graduating middle school, and transitioning into high school must be overwhelming for him. When he finally answered my call, I was thrilled, and we had a lovely conversation. It only took a moment of sharing my recent activities, like building a house and our beloved Corgi getting older, and discussing our mutual love for video games, to get him to open up. I'm thrilled for him as he's achieved a high rank in Rocket League and has received an invitation to a tournament with professional players, which will be streamed on Twitch. He promised to send me the link and suggested that we continue our conversation. It's a small triumph for me that he still regards me as his father, and I feel honored and joyful to hear the changes in his voice. However, several hours after our conversation ended, my heart began to ache with a dull pain that penetrated deep into my core. I was in so much pain and discomfort that I could hardly sleep. When my father saw me struggling last night, he asked me what was wrong. At first I couldn't articulate it, but when he asked again, I just blurted it all out. Despite feeling overjoyed that my son is still in my life and I can be involved in whatever way he wants, the way he wants, the heaviness and agony remain, and my mind still yearns to understand why. At this point, the reason behind the situation no longer holds any significance, and it wouldn't provide me with any comfort, even if I knew it. Despite the fact that everything has concluded, it still feels raw and painful even after 2 years. My affection and admiration for my son, as well as the pride I feel in being his father, are all closely linked to the love I once had for my ex-partner. Unfortunately, that love only serves as a painful reminder every time I have to interact with him. My father was unfaithful in the past, but he has since apologized and continues to make amends. He once shared with me that although I cannot fully understand what it's like to be in your shoes, you may need to consider whether the pain and sorrow that comes with this situation is worth the toll it takes on your mental health and overall well-being. I know that you love him deeply and cherish the moments you share together, but it seems that it takes a day or two for you to recover from the aftermath. I'm not suggesting that you give up on him, because if I were in your position, I would never abandon you. However, it may be beneficial for you to release yourself from the burden you've been carrying. You have given your all, and I haven't seen you this happy in a long time, but I can sense the toll it's taking on you as your emotions are tangled between your love for your son and the pain you still carry from the betrayal. I understand that he is trying to be a supportive father to his struggling son, and seeing the pain on your face is the last thing he would want. Considering the extensive military training that taught him to view situations from multiple perspectives, I believe he is offering me sound advice. I don't think he intends to completely cut ties with my son, but rather to keep some distance. Perhaps he wants to spare me from the pain that still lingers in my heart. These are just my thoughts. My sympathies go out to those who are hurting right now. Stay strong and maintain a positive attitude for those who are in the process of healing. Here are my reaction thoughts on the situation. It seems like your wife was never fully committed to the marriage. Personally, I think that she isn't ready to be a spouse or a parent yet. Perhaps one day she will mature and become capable of fulfilling those roles, but for now she just isn't cut out for it. However, it's important to note that her relationship with you is not your concern anymore. You should keep an eye on her ability to co-parent effectively, because it seems like she may not be up to the task. It's possible that she may end up leaving your child with whoever is willing to take care of them. It's possible that while your ex-wife is out having fun, she may introduce your son to a revolving door of new friends, which is not acceptable. My suggestion is to try negotiating a more structured custody schedule with specific times for visitation, rather than relying on last-minute requests like, "Can you take him today?" This will also give you time to pursue your own interests, including dating and eventually building a new relationship. However, take things slow and don't rush into anything too quickly. It's important to remember that your ex-wife's behavior is a reflection of her flaws, and it's not your fault. She has caused damage to two families, but you did everything in your power to prevent it. It's time to grieve, but eventually it's important to move on. Thank you for listening to today's story. Don't forget to like and subscribe if you haven't already done so, and comment below on your thoughts about today's story. Take care, everyone.